I'm Candy Crowley, and this is State of the Union. I am joined by Tim Tates, Legislative Director of the American Legion, and Paul Rieckhoff, Founder and Executive Director of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Thank you for joining us for our annual conversation, let's call it that, because this is such an important issue. And I remember last year, both of you said to me when I said, what's the most important problem facing vets crossing all wars, you said unemployment. Mr. Rieckhoff, is that still the same answer?
Yes, it is. I think we've made huge progress. There's now a national conversation around the value of hiring a veteran, and the First Lady and the President have been out in front. Fortune 500 companies have been out in front. But the bottom line is we see a 17% unemployment rate for IAVA members. That means that 17% of the folks who are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan are coming home to an unemployment check. So that's unacceptable. We also know that the economy is still very tough. The military will be downsizing, and folks are facing some transitional challenges.
Mr. Tates, I want to put up for our viewers the nature of the vet unemployment problem at this point, which shows that certainly Gulf War era, the second Gulf War era, young males 18 to 24, the unemployment rate is 17.3%. The good news, I guess, in that is that it used to be 29% just a year ago. So clearly there has been improvement. But why do you think, particularly for that category of veterans, and that's, let's face it, most of these veterans are young, why does that remain such a problem to get employers to hire, on top of it obviously hasn't been the best economy?
You know, Candy, I think that what's unique about that population is that 18% number in comparison to the non-veterans in that class. The non-veterans are 15% unemployment in that same age cohort. So that is still a striking number. That's still far worse than other eras. But we are having a hard time having young people get jobs today. But the biggest, scariest number, I think, more than that 18%, is the fact of the 780,000 veterans who are currently out of a job, 2/3 of them are between the ages of 35 and 64, and they might not have the resources like the GI Bill and many of the other things that these younger veterans have to use.
I want to play something that Mr. Rieckhoff, you told me when we last spoke a year ago, and we were talking about veterans' disability benefits and applying for those benefits and how long it took to get them. Here's what you had to say.
Every VA secretary comes in and says, I'm going to break the backlog. And every VA secretary leaves and says the next guy's got to break the backlog. It hasn't happened yet.
Has it happened yet? Last I saw, the backlog is something like 900,000, almost there, and that is taking up to 400 days to get some of these things processed. Seems like it's gotten worse.
It has. It's definitely gotten worse, and it's gotten worse at the local level. It's 870,000 claims that are still backlogged. The average veteran is waiting 6 months for a disability claim to go through. If you appeal, it resets to 2 years. So the system is broken. And what we've seen is veterans at the local level are incredibly frustrated. In San Francisco this week, there was a town hall meeting where over 200 veterans came out to talk about their disability claims that had been backlogged. San Francisco has become like ground zero in Oakland, that area, for this problem.
Whose fault is this? I mean, it seems like every year the backlog gets longer. The amount of time, you know, to wait for it is longer. Whose fault is that?
Well, it's got to be the VA's fault. I mean, the secretary's got to take this head on, and the president's got to get involved. I mean, the president has not been aggressive in tackling this backlog, which continues to plague our veterans nationwide. And there was an IG report that just came out a few weeks ago that said the VA is also failing to rapidly respond to mental health needs. The average wait time for a mental health appointment is 50 days. In San Francisco, it's over 300 days.
Which is crazy. If someone suffering from a mental health problem of any sort can't wait that long. Otherwise,
right,
that becomes a risk to society, does it not, Mr. Tates?
I think that's a risk to society, and we're setting ourselves up for failure before these folks even leave the military. You know, we had a hearing yesterday in the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and we basically discovered that people who started, you know, over a year ago, they were identified by their commanding officer as perhaps unfit for duty because of an injury or an illness. When they started their disability evaluation system, a newfangled system that we created in 2008, if they started that over a year, they'd still be languishing in that system. It took them 404 days to get them through that process, to evaluate them, to determine, yes, we can no longer use you in the military, yes, here are your VA benefits, and then 2 months after discharge, getting them their benefits. I mean, that's setting them up, whether they have a mental health injury or whether they're merely wanting to get back into school or a job, making them sit there and languish for 400 days while in some barracks on some base is absolutely an atrocity.
I want to ask the two of you something that's a little outside your zone, but I am curious about it. The president this week has put out a new political ad about his support for the military, obviously an attempt to take away what has generally been a demographic, that is the military, that has been Republican. The last time in the last election, 2008, President Obama won 44% of the military vote, but John McCain won 54% of the vote. First, do you think that in any way shows any signs of changing, that the military vote might be coming more toward the Democratic Party? And second, why do you think it is that in general military families tend to vote more Republican? Let's start with you, Mr. Tates.
You know, I don't see amongst my peers and my friends and those serving in the military that, they're Republicans, Democrats, and you certainly don't wear it on your dog tags or on your uniform. They look out for what's in the best interest of their family and themselves and their country. And when they're sitting there and evaluating how a commander-in-chief did, they sit there and look, well, how many times did I have to deploy? What was I given in return for that? What am I charged for my TRICARE rates? How is my family cared for while I'm gone? How am I cared for when I come back? And if the president can go out there and say, this is what I did for you as a president, and this is how I had your back when you were out there, then he's going to do fairly well. If he can't demonstrate that and how it affected them personally, he's going to have a tough road to hoe.
Mr. Rieckhoff, final word on that?
Veterans are a political jump ball, and they're not really, they're demographically pretty mixed, especially the younger generation, and they want to see candidates working for their vote. They're very independent-minded, and nobody's got this locked up, and especially this year where neither candidate is a military veteran themselves. So Mitt Romney and the president are both going to have to work hard and show how they've made an impact in the past and how they're really going to get things like the backlog done. How are they going to protect veterans from for-profit schools that have been predatory lately? How are they going to support the GI Bill and really help them and their families at the local level? We are really focused on country first more than any other community, and we're looking for a candidate who's going to do the same.
Paul Rieckhoff, founder and executive director of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, and Tim Tates, legislative director of the American Legion. Thank you for your time today. Thank you both for your service. Have a good Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you, Candy. We appreciate it very much.
We asked Veterans Affairs Secretary Eric Shinseki to join us this week, but we're told his schedule was full. We are struck by both the growing backlog at the VA as well as the stories of some service members who have been deemed unfit for service due to injury, but have to wait up to 400 days or more to be discharged. If this is happening to you or someone you know, please send us an email, stateoftheunion@cnn.com, and use Lost in the System in the subject line. Up next, our Sound of Sunday, highlights from the other Sunday morning talk shows, and then Fareed Zakaria, GPS at the top of the hour.